Okay, so what I'm going to do is open one of my working files. Actually, the most current file I left. I didn't put it on my thumb drive, so I don't have it. Um, by now, everybody should have pretty much their walls laid out, and including the basement in place, right, and constrained. I'm a bad example. Let me show you good posture, right? Okay, why do I have a structural plan in here? Something has changed. All right, if I can dock the browser, right? Let me see. Okay, this one has floors, so I got to find the one without the floors to start. All right, so let me open that. So I'm gonna have two files open. Open. Okay. So I'm gonna go to one of the wall sections so we can see if it has floors or not. So notice no floors. Actually, I have no walls either. All right. So let me bring that down. So in case you haven't, most of you have gotten this complete part done. So much you're this far, right? Uh, pull this down, and the difficult part about this is it actually has parts that are missing. So what I need to do is put a section through here. Even if you aren't going to use the section to document this or publish this later, still you can have a section. You can hide it later and not be concerned about it. If it's going to help you complete the work. So I'll pull this down. And what am I missing? If you'll notice this is gray dark, I'll just show you this. That's because detail level's off. But there's actually when it says coarse here, there's actually a type property here. If I click on this, actually it's not a type property. Where does it say that? If I click on the wall, actually it is a type property. When I click on the wall and I go edit, it actually has a division right here that says core scale fill pattern, and it says solid. I've changed this to solid. So it gives you an option to have some kind of fill pattern between the lines for the wall if you are set in the coarse mode. So a coarse level, detail level. If I change this back to fine, that's going to go away, and I see the layered walls. Later on, that's probably going to be useful to you. Yes, it's actually on the wall I click the wall, so it's part of the wall types. Remember we have instances here. That didn't list that. So we have instant parameters for the wall, and then when we push this button here, it shows us the type parameters or type properties. If you remember, an instance is every time we have that particular item placed. A type is the type it is, like that's a CMU wall, this is a gypsum wallboard wall. So by clicking this and going to types, these are this is actually defining the type of wall it is. Seems obvious, but I'm going to go here to structure, and you know all that, right? Or not all of it, but most of it. But here under types, under graphics, there's a pattern right here, and I can set a color. I set this to gray because I don't like the real dark black, but you could have set that to black. So if I change this to black, you can change that. There's like settings like this all over Revit. So you can make things look the way you want them to look. So if I did that, switch this back to coarse, my walls are black. So if you like black versus gray, that's how you do that. Or if you wanted another color, please don't do it. Other colors though. All right, so I'm gonna put another wall section through here so I can pull these down, and then I'm gonna erase them later or delete them later. Okay, I'm gonna go to that. Oops. Coarse, and I'm gonna pull that pup down all the way down to here. Go to my fourth wall section. Pull that one down as well. Alright. So now if I go back to one of these sections, some of you this first time you've done it, so some of you are struggling a little bit at it, but you just cut one like we did the second method, right? The second method in the wall exercise, and then we unconstrain it. So here, these are constraints. One constraint is to unconstrain it from the top of footing, and the other one is to unconstrain the location line, like this one. A constraint is a little padlock, and it also has a little dash green line or blue line. Some people think it's blue. I think it's green. I'm going to go up here, 8'2", click on that one, hover over this till it's red, and then I'm going to do it. And I was showing you the other day on Tuesday if you can actually not do that step. You can actually wait till Revit gives you a warning and then remove the constraints that way. I always like to do it this way because I know that I've done it and I don't have to worry about it. If I miss one, the lazy person like Steve here, example. Let's pick on Steve Day. If you want to change this little portion here, you just push down the control button, you push that, and then you go to the change the type. I'm going to change this before I do the other. And I'll show you another way when I do the others. So I'm going to change this to foundation wall. I'm going 8 inches. Ultimately, you should change that to 8 inches. I'm going to use the alignment tool. I'm going to use the wall center line. I'm going to pick the wall center line, and I'm going to move that one over. It fussed at me. That's because I missed a constraint. That's what happens when you miss a constraint. And let me undo that. Figure out what it is. So if you miss a constraint, it's like that. You can also move it. So to move it, you pick on, there's the constraint. So somehow I missed that one. Oh, still missing one. So this is probably constrained to that. And not probably, it is. Okay, so let me I'm just going to show you move. You can move as well. So you say move. Notice that's checked for constraint because it knows it's constrained, and it's constrained to this wall up here. And that's why one shifts one way and the others will shift the other way. And so if I unconstrain it, that's by unchecking it, and I say disjoin, and I pick the middle of this, I can actually just force it over. Yeah. Right, you had this situation. So if you had this situation, you got to find the constraint. Because I'm so lazy, I just decided to move it. Right, so you pick that, you go move, and it lets, as on the options bar, it has a constraint. So if you can remove the constraint and you select disjoin, you can usually move it without. Wait, I've got it to the center line here. Yeah. Yeah, right. Otherwise, you have to look for the constraint without going through a lot of these other. There's some other features that allow you to see constraints. Um, and that's one reason why I unconstrain it as I'm splitting the wall. So let's see what happens here on this side. Again, I missed the constraint. So I'm gonna move it. Oh, it ain't that one. This is the top. So it's actually one that's going to present itself over here, and I'm trying to look for the constraint. I have trouble finding this one usually. So just go ahead and move it. Pick it. Say move. Undo the constraint. Disjoin. Join is when those. I think I had an extra little piece there somewhere. It just deleted something, but that we'll see what that is in a second. And then you're going to pull this down. Remember that? All right. Let me go to the other one. It's not really what I wanted to talk about yet, but I'm going through it just so you can see it. So if I go to Modify tab, Split, I go Split. Actually, there's two. I don't know if I split twice or not. So I'm going to unlock everything that I get a hold of here. I come up to here, split that one. Yeah, just hover over it. It's still a cursor. If you hover over it and it turns red, or kind of whatever color that is, orange, kind of an orange color, then you can click and it'll undo. Right, you'll cut it, make another second cut, and I suspect that's what happened when I was down there below. I may have cut it twice. Like that, I think I just cut it twice. So I just undo. There's one constraint. Um, all right. Okay, another thing you can do is if you change, let's say you change this one, um, and you go to the type and you make that 24 inches footing, and then you change that one to a foundation wall. And we'll center. Let's see if I missed something again. If I did, I'm losing my touch. I'm losing my touch. All right, so I'm gonna move this. Later on, I'll show you how we make. There's other ways of making footings. So I have something. It's actually deleting a piece, so I must have double cut it or something. All right, so there's a tool over here called Match Properties. I showed some people this. And if you're real lazy like Aaron is, he's using this tool, right? We're going to touch the foundation wall to that. All right, so you pick what you want something to be, and then you touch the object. And so that could be multiple of objects. So like if I had like 10 objects I wanted to change this foundation wall, or if I had cut all the walls, another method would be that I would cut all the walls, and then I would take the match tool and touch this footing, and then just go around and change all those. So whatever's faster. Yeah, that one's not centered yet. It's called match properties. So it basically changes an object to be the same as the object that you're starting out with. Right. I thought you saw this one. All right. So like if is this it? It's a paintbrush. Let's do the foundation. If I touch this and I touch this, that becomes a foundation. Well, you want them to be the same thing. They'll be the exact same thing. It would do the windows too. That this applies to mostly everything. I can't tell you what it doesn't apply to, but most of the time I use it for walls. Oops. See, I just changed the foundation wall to a footing. Revit didn't like that either. Um, it allowed me to do it. It just didn't like it because it embedded the other one into the other wall. It also picked up the bottom constraint and the top constraint and made it the same. That's why I wound it up inside the other one. So, and I'm going to move this since I. All right, so 3, section 3. Let's see what constraint. I think there's 2 constraints there, and I'm trying to think what they are. Oh, I have 2 pieces of wall. That's what the problem is. So I separated the layers. So that was probably what was causing my little problem. I didn't get the third one. All right, so I'm going to change that to 8-inch concrete, and then I'm going to change this pup to 24-inch footing, and then I'm going to center that. I think I got everything, so nope, that was I didn't get it here. Still, I did all 3 of them here, didn't I? Oh, I have another little piece there or something going on there. Split it again. Everybody's a pro with this now, right? It should be 3. Actually, there should have been 3 up there, and that's probably nope, no 3. Okay. To the footing. always got to check to see if man. Oh, did I already moved it. This wall is not in the right place. Oh, okay. I know why. I Pee Wee Herman stuff. I meant to do that. All right. So 8 inch, and then I'm just gonna move it just 'cause. All right. All right. So everybody should be at least here with some walls inside and everything. Wait a minute. I'm still a lot of work. Did I just move that and I didn't copy it? All right. Sorry. I'm just gonna split this. See, there's three here, and I can't get to the third one, and I think that's part of my problem here. Okay, so I'll go. I'm sorry. Um, it's actually because I have two separate layers. A lot of times it's better to do like the order of things is you may need to do this before you add the two layers. Remember when you edit the wall and you have added the two layers? Better explain this. All right. Remember when we did this? Separated the two. That's the other constraint, and it also is probably a better thing to do the other. It's faster and easier if you do it before you do this, and then you do this after the fact, and then you'll pull it down because you're going to pull it down after the fact anyway. Um, all right, so I'm going to split. Oh, now it's got the three. And I'm going to come up to here, split again. All right. Now I may be splitting pieces of wall one as I do. So I'm going to take this, turn it, convert that to a footing. And I'm going to take this and convert it to an 8-inch foundation wall. And then we'll move this over. See, that constraint is actually to the top of the footing. Move, unconstrain it, and disjoin. What's that? It's already checked. Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So everybody should be somewhere around here, right? They should have walls. Some people have other walls at the top, and they have their foundation wall, right? Everybody should be here. All right. Yeah, these I'll call them pilasters, but we'll, yeah, they're not. Actually, I made them out of the walls. Yeah, and we'll talk more about that kind of detail a little later. I'm not worried about that right now. Okay, so now I'm ready to put a floor in here. All right, so I got a basement. Your basement should look like something like this, and so That's usually a concrete slab, right? 4-inch concrete slab. I go to the architecture. I go to floor. I go to the architectural floor. You could use a structural floor. If you're working with a structural engineer, you might want to use a structural floor. All it does for you is this little check right here. You check this box, and it enables the analytical nature of Revit to calculate the the, uh, the floor as part of the structure. I'm just going to leave that unchecked for now. So we're going to come back here, and I'm going to pick a wall. Remember I talked about the tools. So these are basically draw tools. Line, rectangle, pentagon, inscribed polygon. If I punch this, it'll ask me how many sides. I could say 5 or 6. And it's going to be inscribed in a circle. If I touch this one, it's a circumscribed, so it's outside the circle. I can put in the number of sides once I punched it. Once I punch it, over here it says sides. This one is a circle. This one is an arc. If you're using AutoCAD, you kind of know some of these arcs. I'm assuming, man, when I first was using AutoCAD, there was like 10 arcs, 10 different types of arcs. This one I like the best is basically start, end, and the midpoint, and then you can just adjust it. That's my favorite. Here you have to know what the center of the circle is. This one is a tangent arc. I don't hardly ever use this one much. So you touch one thing, you touch the other, and I guess you can adjust it. By the way, if you hadn't figured this out, if you touch something, there's a little video that goes along with this, a little splash video that shows you how the commands work. I didn't mention it before because it put me out of a job, right? Here's a fillet arch. So remember in AutoCAD, fillet I think is a different function. So a fillet here in Revit is actually something you draw. I guess the video for this one is dead. Here, there it is. Usually you need more than that, but it gives you a basic. It gives you a good basic. You just hover on it. You just hover on it, and it'll say video is loading. And this one, for some reason, there's something wrong with the file structure, and it's missing. If you need help elsewhere, it's right here. You could put it here. It'll go to the Autodesk website and show you a little bit more than what the flash video does. Let's see if the spline works. Yes, spline kind of works. I guess there's no video associated with it. So you just put points and so these are different ways you can draw your sketch. But my favorite and the easiest ones to use are these last two. One is pick lines, so you actually pick a line, and they can be even a reference line for that matter, and it will put a line, part of the sketch exactly on top of that line. Or this one, which is pick walls. So I pick a wall, and it actually places the line of the sketch on the wall. So I'm going to pick walls. The very first wall you put in, the first line you put in, will have two markings on it. That's the span. That's the span of which the structural system is using. And usually, that if you have a surface pattern associated with the floor, is usually that pattern is perpendicular or has some relationship to where your span is, right? So I'm going to pick this other wall, pick this wall, pick this wall, pick this wall, pick this wall, this wall, this wall. Has to be a closed polygon. here at the basement, that's precisely correct. You want a line there. The upper floor is a little different, and I'll try to explain that when I do it. This one, I'm gonna set the level for basement, just like a base constraint, and I'm gonna finish the sketch. So if you've accidentally ever been in this mode, um, you've probably noticed that everything turns gray, and you have these two options. If I push the red X, it would just discard everything, right? So if I mess up for some reason, I can use discard. What'll happen sometimes, you'll get really, I know I'm repeating myself from the other day, but sometimes you'll get a little small line, pink line, right? And it may double or it may not connect. All these have to connect. Sometimes you'll have especially if you use the wall tool. One of the dangers of using the pick the wall is I could pick the wall again and put another line on top of this line. So if you have double lines, you have a problem. I'm going to do that, by the way. And so you don't know until you've closed the sketch that you made that mistake. So if I say, okay, I guess I didn't make it. Oh, maybe that's something they fixed. Could be something they fixed. I can edit. Once I've created a sketch, just select it and say edit boundary, and the boundary's back. Let me see if they fix that. Yeah, they fixed it. Right. All right. I think the other day I was talking about ways you can join these lines. Like if this will not work, you'll get an error message here. See that? And it'll make these orange, and it will say lines must be a closed loop. So to make this a closed loop, I can do one of two things. I can just actually pick the line and just close it that way. The other way is by using some of my tools over here. I can use the trim tool, which is this one. I think you form a corner a little different in AutoCAD, right? You actually use a tool that's sort of like this one. But in Revit, trim will just pick a corner. And what you want to do is you want to pick those two elements that you want to keep. So I want to keep that one, and I want to keep that one, and it closes. So for instance, if I'm out here, this is not going to work either. Revit won't like that. It turns it orange. It used to not tell you where your problem was. Those were bad days. So you can either pull it back down, or you can take the trim tool and you want to trim what you keep. Opposite of AutoCAD, I think you trim off the top, right? You pick this and you pick off what you want to trim off, right? AutoCAD users, right? Still AutoCAD's way of doing things? Okay. So so I'm done now with this. This is a closed loop. I finish it. I do not want to join the geometry in this case. I think I showed you that. If I go here and we look, I've got an extra line here. If I were to say yes, it would actually join with this wall, and it would be continuous. All right, so that's the basement floor. So let's talk about the first floor, which we talked about the other day. So if I go to the first floor, and I go floor, architectural floor, and I'm going to create a floor type. I had you write down the types of floors, right? And we're using basically TJIs, right? Everybody remember that? Nope. We are using the framing system we're using is called TJIs, truss, a joist, and a lot of you have this in your house. Come on, Chrome. I'm a Chrome man, I tell you. Let's see. So I say truss, joist. So our framing, I'm going to block that just because I'm a jerk. um, truss joists. So this is the type of structural system we're using: 5 1/4, 9 1/2, 11 and 7/8. We're going to use 11 and 7/8. I think the maximum span for 11 and 7/8 is like 20 feet or 22 feet or something like that, but we're going to use that for the first floor. Second floor, we're going to use the 9 1/2. All right. All right. So now I go back to this, and you'll get different ways of approaching this. I want to keep the finish separate from the floor, from the structural floor. And so what I'm going to do, if you look at the floor types here, they already have the finish on them. Like this one, this is a wood floor with wood finish. So if you look at the edit, it's actually got the subfloor. This gray space actually represents the structural members. It doesn't show the structural members, but it actually represents it. And so I am saying to you, I am just going to show the sheathing or the substrate here and this space right here. Notice there's no ceiling either underneath it. That's a totally different function. If I had my druthers or my if I would direct Revit to have a separate function called floor finish. So see, they have a separate ceiling. But anyway, so we're going to do a structural floor. And I'm going to pick a structural floor that's similar to the one I'm going to do, which is the 11 7/8. So I'm going to pick the wood truss joist, 12 inches. See that one? On carpet. They're using a nominal size here. Remember we had nominal and actual sizes? Right? I'm going to edit. I go duplicate. And I'm going to say wood truss joists 11 7/8. I'm probably doing this a little different than I did Tuesday, right? And I'm going to say no finish. Let me put my computer glasses on. Alright, so I say no finish, and then we edit it. Did I get this far the other day? I don't remember. So I said here's 11 7/8. That's the truss. Here's a case where they actually made the substrate as part of the structure. In our case, this is 7/8 OSB. I gave you that sketch, and it says 7/8 OSB, right? So I'm going to change that. Punch this to expand the browser. How do I get this other part out here? I don't do it often enough. Show and you show. Is it that one? It may be. That's assets. I think, remember I had a little problem with this earlier? I think I'm having the problem with it now. Oh, here it is. Was that there all along? Somebody? No? It was? It's okay. I got to know whether I couldn't see it. All right, so that makes sense, though. All right, so now I'm going to go to the OSB. So I'm going to add that. It's already in here, so I'm going to just add it. Don't care about the color, don't care how it renders, really, but it's going to render and everything, so that's fine. I say OK. And then I'm going to delete the finish, which I don't even see here. But I'm going to delete it. So all my floor is a structural floor. I say OK. What's that? I this is fine. If I pick wood truss joists, 11 7/8 is good. I just changed the size of the substrate or the structural floor. In the wall section, it's actually 7/8, so I changed it to 7/8, and then I deleted the finish because the finish I'm gonna put on separately. All right. Uh huh. That's it. Those two parts, and it's gray. It's pretty flat. So I say OK, OK once again, and I'm going to use the pick wall tools. So I go back to see the green here. That's the contextual tab, and I'm just going to pick the walls. Now structurally, I know that I'm going to have I'm going to run joist this way, actually, and then maybe this way. I don't know what I'm going to do about this, but all right. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and touch the wall. So I'll touch this wall so that my span is this way. Pick that, pick that, pick that. Notice that the Revit is placing this on the exterior face of core. Right? So notice it's automatically putting it on the exterior face of core. If for some reason, and this happens, it goes on the interior face of core, then you just flip it by using the control arrows. Right? Those are called control arrows. And you flip it back onto the exterior face of core. But your pink lines need to be on the exterior face of core. And this looks like it's going to work because it's a closed loop. So I'm going to look at the level that I'm working at, which is the first floor subfloor, and that would be the top of the this floor that I just put in here. And I'm going to just say finish. And it's going to ask me this. It asked me, and I ignored it and said no in the basement. But here it says the floor roof overlaps the highlighted wall. Would you like to join geometry and cut the overlap volume out of the walls? The answer to that is yes. This time. Your walls may not be tall enough or something. We'll talk. So now I got this floor here. And then I'm going to click on this. And this is what you see. So by answering that yes, what happens is Revit cleans up the geometry and the lines. So right now you can tell that I've got a seal here, a seal plate. Right, everybody kind of familiar with the construction? Look at the wall section if you're not. And then I've got a joist here, and then I've got the finish on top of that, and then the wall continues. So Revit automatically cuts that area out, changes the line weights so that graphically it's correct. If I didn't do that, it would be like this. It would look like this. I would say I'm going to use unjoined geometry. I'm going to skip. So that's cut. It would look like that. And that would not look graphically correct. You agree? So if I for some reason forget or neglect, then you can always rejoin the geometry. So I say join geometry, touch that, it cleans it up for me. I got to do each wall this time though. So hopefully I got it all the way around. So this is my floor. And if I look at it in 3D, all right. Here's something exciting. I'm going to take the 3D view and I'm going to duplicate it. So I just did a right button click. I'm going to go duplicate right here. I'll explain later about what well, I may have already explained what duplicate means and duplicate what detail is, but I'm just going to duplicate it. So I have two 3D views. This second one, I'm going to come over here to one of the view properties, and there's a thing called a section box. You guys are going to like this. I like this. And you're going to check that box, and the little block, invisible kind of like ice cube thing box comes up. If I click on the line of this, I can pull it down. If I click on the line of this, I can pull it down, and it will cut through my building. It will cut it off. So that's called a section box. So it's not too early for you to start doing this, but it's not against any rule to have more than one 3D view. In fact, that's really what you should do. You should have I should have one for the basement. So if I duplicate this, that way you can see inside your model. You can imagine once I put a roof on this, I'm not going to be able to see what's going on the model. So by copying it and using the section box, I can look at it however I would like. But in the 3D view, right? It's more of a actually you'll use these views with the section box as actual drawings, representations. You can. And because, like, let's say you have one room you want to feature, you can actually cut everything off but that room, and you can see that one room in one view. I'll show you some examples that, next week I'll show you some examples of how you use this section box for that. All right, pretty neat, right? And usually, if you're organized, lazy but organized like me, I usually rename this. I'm claiming one good attribute, right? Let's see. I'm going to call this first floor. And I'm going to call this one basement. That way, when I want to look or study something that I've done in the basement or the first floor, I can just go to that 3D view and look. So there's no reason why you should always, like, some people I've noticed will create a section box and they'll turn it off. Actually, what will happen is if you're here and I turn it off, it's gone. I have to recreate it again. And some people constantly are doing that. You don't need to do that, but just once. Just create the view. Go ahead and create the view. It will save it in a browser. So notice I copied this one, which already had the section box on, and all I had to do was move it down because I'm lazy, right? So yeah, if this one has no section box at all, just always have a default this one like this, and then you could have just countless number 3D section boxes. I'll show you some browsers I have that have just so many 3D views. It's ridiculous. There's no limit. All right. So now I have a floor. It's a structural floor. It's a nice floor. I can't see it in plan. I'm going to delete this. And I'm only going to run my mouth for a few more minutes, and I'm going to come around and see how everybody's doing. For instance, I want to use wood in this room, and I want to use tile in some rooms. I want to do other things. Oh, this is I really have come a long way. I'll have to definitely bring my Julia Child's version next week. But anyway, I've got. Let's say I want to have a wood floor in here and here, and typically on a drawing, particularly a design drawing, usually post-shade the floor, the surface pattern, the floor. And the other thing about finished floors, the finish on the floor, is if you come into this hallway and you notice there's a rubber little black strip there, that's called a reducer strip. There are differences in elevation of materials sometimes, and not so much here, but sometimes, if you're dealing with terrazzo or some stone or something like that, you have to have what's called a threshold. Everybody's heard that term, right? And so there's a change in elevation. So doing it this way allows you to have that distinction, even though it may be minute. So what I'm going to do is create another floor here and say floor, architectural floor, and I want this floor to be my finish only. And I'm going to pick wood. So I'm going to pick the wood finish. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to say wood finish only. And then I'm going to edit. I picked the 10-inch wood, and changed it to wood finish only. So I'm going to edit this. So all it is going to be the finished flooring, this oak flooring right here. So I'm going to delete this portion. Now the problem with deleting that is that Revit needs something structural. So I deleted the big one. I'm going to actually make this smaller. And I lie a lot of times. I'll just say it's a 16th inch. And actually, I'm not going to be able to find it here. Like I actually put the material or the adhesive in there. You can actually put the adhesive in here, and Revit's keeping track of the area that's in there, so you can actually keep a takeoff of it. So if I type mastic, I don't think it's going to be in here. I have to load it. Oh, all right. So I'm gonna pick mastic. A glue, yeah. I don't even know how they. You know how they attach floors now. Not the real floors. Usually it's a glue that the manufacturer recommends. It's adhesive. Yeah. So it's an adhesive that these floors now are not real finished floors. Errors in the past, they're real. Like my house, my house was built probably 1960 or so, in the early 60s. Is actually a real wood finish, but the finishes we use now are basically just applied to plywood or OSB, And so I just use the word mastic, but it's really an adhesive. The manufacturer could actually supply that, and if I had that, it would actually have the name of the manufacturer here. I could have all that information here, including the cost. Usually it's usually in liquid form, so it's usually by the gallon or quart or whatever, and so you'd have to make that transition between the volume of the liquid versus the area that it covers. And usually it says that on the can, 400 square feet. This can's good for 400 square feet, whatever. So there's a lot of things here in Revit that just, you can use to your advantage, and this would be one of them. So in my case, I'm just going to call this mastic, and I'm going to and give it some thickness. Actually, I could even make it even smaller. I think I can go down. You can only go down to maybe a 32nd here, and so now I have a finished floor system here. So I say okay, okay again, and this was different because I won't be able to pick the walls. I could probably pick lines, but for the most part, I wind up drawing these. So I draw pretty much the extent of the floor that I would like. And I'll tell you something that's cute in a minute. I'm missing part of my wall here. I don't know what happened to part of my wall. That's probably something I deleted. Let's just say it's just this one room. Basically, I would just sketch the outline of how, if I wanted it in here, I would come in here, go around. I'm not going to spend the time doing it. Go around, and wherever I had the wood finish, if it was continuous, right? And then remember that it's a little bit offset. It is actually 3/4 of an inch thick, so I'm going to put add 3/4. And if you remember, if you notice, we had first floor, subfloor. That isn't the finished floor. This is actually the finished floor. So I say finish, and I have a slight overlap. And this is the pattern of the floor. I don't like this heavy line work, so I'm going to click on that. And I can change that in a couple ways. I'm going to just do it this way because it's faster. Actually, let me do it. I'm going to do it with the material. I'm going to go here, go edit, edit. I'm going to go to flooring right here. So every time I see this flooring, yeah, let's make these wider. 6-inch floor. I can change the darkness of the line work. That's my complaint. Everybody just kind of get what I'm saying here?
So how do you know you're at line that last mode you were in?
Say that again.
You changed the thickness of the line. What was the last mode you were in?
Oh, I'm in material browser. I'm changing the way it looks. I'm lightening it up. It was too heavy.
How did you lighten it up? I saw how you made
Okay,
it
so let me.
wider.
All right, so I've got this. See how heavy it is? That drives me crazy. It's a little too pungent for me, right? Everybody see that? Agree, maybe? All right, so so I'm going to click on this and actually change the surface pattern of that material. So I go here to oak flooring. I go to here. I go to the material browser, and I go over here to color. One other thing I wanted to change about it is I wanted to actually make it 6-inch parallel. And then I'm going to change this. It's 3-inch parallel now. So I just make it. I just made it a little gray, a little grayer. So so it's not as pungent. So because it's equal in color, weight to the wall, and I don't want it to be that.
The other question is, what's the difference of really apply and okay? Because I see it.
Not really. Apply is only effective to me in a preview. So, like when we were doing the sweeps, when you say apply, you can actually see the changes. For the most part, you almost don't need to use apply. So I don't even know why it's there, but it's there. So I think it's a throwback to when things were a little slower and redraw. All right, so now I have a floor pattern. All right, and so that's on top of this one. If you look at it in section, this looks thicker, right? So it's actually showing the pattern of the floor. And I think that's more effective way of doing the floor. There are other ways of doing it, but what as I said before, whoops, I goofed. Or did I? I didn't goof. All right. Join. All right. All right. So I got the other thing you can do, and if you've got you can appreciate this is I use a lot of spot elevations. Spot elevations tells you what elevation something is, so I can put that there, and somebody looking at a plan can see that there's a 3/4 of an inch difference between this surface and that surface. And that's what you get when you have different floors at different levels. Yes, this is permanent. This is like a dimension. It's an annotation, and it doesn't have to be in this. This is not what I'm accustomed to. I'm accustomed to decimals, feet, right? You may, if you looked at a lot of plans, it's usually decimal feet. You're right, Andreas. You're used to decimal feet.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
so
gonna depend on the
yeah,
project.
but this can be changed. This is actually a type. You can say edit, and then you can change the units that it format here, and we'll talk about that some other time. So you'll have finishes on your floors. So, and I'll show you rooms later next week. But so you'll have a finish here, finish here. This one's like ceramic tile. So you would do the same thing, and you would have ceramic tile in another area.
But all that's going on top of the foundation, right?
It's going on top of the
Once you
floor.
put the joists and once I put the joists on top of the foundation, I'm gonna put the finish on the floor, right?
Right, it's above the floor. Yeah, it's on top of the subfloor. And I like doing it this way, and it's sort of the way I teach doing it. And some people have some other ways of doing it, but this you want to really be able to do this, be able to distinguish that. The other thing is when you click on the floor, you can actually see how many square feet it is. Look at that. So you can feed that into a table or a calculation or onto a spreadsheet. So that works well, along with the adhesive that we use to put the floor down. So any questions? So the any questions, Aaron?
Just about how to get the floor in, and I'm not sure if I'm getting it right.
Okay, so I'm going to come around. We're going to make sure we get a floor. So by next week, you're going to have some windows in. We're going to readjust the windows over time. You're going to have a floor in. You're going to have these walls in for the first floor, and maybe some walls on the second floor. Those are really going to adjust when we start putting the roof on. Um, so that's what we're going to do. Questions? Any more?
Can you show me when you did the wood truss joist 11/7/8? How you edit that one?
Okay, I just took a floor type, but it's only filler, right? So let me do this. Since I talked about 3D doing a section box, right? So I'm going to create another section box. Duplicate. And we're going to, actually that's the wrong one to duplicate. And I'm just going to, actually it doesn't matter. Pull that back. So this area right here is where that joist is. From here to here. But they show it as gray as a solid mass. And I can show you how we can put floor actual joists in there.
Okay.
But get the floor in there first. Yeah.
Okay.
Got me. So you usually put the floor in, and then if you're interested in the framing, you'll put the framing in, and it'll fit in between this. And there's some things you can do to turn this off.
So right now it's just showing that it has a solid piece of wood of 11 and 7/8.
That's this right here. Yeah, the 11 7/8. Let's see if I have. I'm gonna open a previous project if I can find one. Actually, I don't need to. I have one on my thumb drive. I'm sure. Hold on. Um, mm, I don't know. I don't know if this is even a finished model. Okay. My Adobe keeps attacking me. Okay, this was a 2016 model, so now it's upgrading to 2018. So this file is 62 megs. So if you're, if you got, I don't even know how finished this is, but your files can get pretty good size. If that means anything to you, that's bigger than the first hard disk I had on a computer. %. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this actually you can actually see these are the TGIs right here. I actually have a 3D framing. So notice, see all the 3D views I have? Some are for study, some are actually on part of the presentation. So what I did here is I made some of the walls transparent. You can actually see the flooring system here. So there's a lot of things you can do, once you start and establish the model. And a lot of fun things. Here's a 3D sectional perspective. And the stair, we'll be doing a stair next week or the next week following. So yeah, so you can have a floor. I mean a framing for the floor. Okay, so let me go around and see how everybody's doing.